Anyone know where we are?
We're on number 67.
Yeah, chapter 17, verse 67. Bharupta Bharupvadyath manurna horatre tatheva cha jnana jnanena me syatam chidruptva visheshataha. I have no knowledge or ignorance in me, as I am of the nature of homogeneous consciousness only.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I am the nature of what?
Homogeneous consciousness only. Just as there is no day or night in the sun, which is of the nature of light only.
Yes. So the point that Shankara's emphasizing is both bondage and liberation, ignorance and knowledge occur to the mind. The self is ever free. So, what is the instrument for the direct experience of the self? Speech does not go there, mind does not go there, the senses do not go there. It is unknowable by those means of knowledge, yet it is knowable. In fact, it is always known. The self is self-evident. You do not see, hear, taste, touch, or smell, emote, or think yourself, yet you know you are. The self is the knower, the self is the means of knowledge, the self is that which is known, never as an object, but as the eternal subject. Now, the great cosmic joke is everybody already has that. If it were something that could be gained, it could be lost. So what is liberation? It is this awakening in the subtle intellect. My ignorance is in the mind. What is my ignorance? Nothing more than I superimpose upon my self-nature, foolish ideas of self. It is adhyasa, superimposition. I attribute qualities of the body and the mind and the intellect to the self. It is like the person who's looking in the jar of water and sees the sun reflected in it and says, oh, there's the sun in the jar. And he hits the water. Oh, the sun is broken. No, the sun's up in the sky. It's always been. But the reflection of the sun, Surya Chaya, gets apparently broken. Actually, there's nothing that really gets broken. So you and I, in the state of ignorance, think, I am happy, I am sad, I am successful, I am a failure, I am a good person, I am a bad person. And none of it affects the self. There is no other moksha, liberation, than the deeply rooted conviction in the subtle intellect. Not that I'm an enlightened person, but I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Meaning, I am not any of the stupid reactions, ideas in the mind. Meaning, even this deep insight occurs in the realm of Maya. There is no ignorance or knowledge in me. So the mind itself commits psychic suicide. The mind itself gives up its belief in its own reality. Only I is real. Any thoughts on this? Now, one might take a verse like this and get caught up in what I call the Vedanta logic loop. Well, in that case, why strive hard for liberation? Why don't I just go out and get loaded? You can do that if you wish. But remember, the self also never undergoes any suffering. Are you suffering? Well, it sure as hell seems like it. Well, that's your mind. So from the standpoint of the mind itself, ignorance and knowledge are quite important. But from the standpoint of the self, neither touches. Now, why is this an important point? So you've been doing well in your practice, you're keeping your mind tuned up, your capacity to discriminate is pretty good. And then all of a sudden, some piece of ancient reactivity comes up and you find that you're screaming and yelling at someone you love, or you react here and there. Oh, I'm a terrible yogi. I must not know the self. Well, the solution is, who cares? Let it go. To try to be an enlightened person is quite a burden. If you let it go and know you are that ground of being, or as Shankara thunders in Nirvana Shakatam, Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I'm of the form of bliss consciousness. I'm Shiva. I'm auspicious. We give up concern for stupid mind states. Next verse.
Shastrasyana tisha Sangya Vada Brahmeva Syamaham Sada Brahmano Mena Heyam Syad Grahyam Veti ch17. As the truth of the scriptures may never be doubted, one should always remember that one identified with Brahman has nothing to accept or reject.
So, again, for those who are Indians, who are Hindus, our ultimate authority is scripture. So the scripture says, what is the mark of the Jivan Mukta, the person who's liberated? They are identified as Brahman. For them, all strivings and strugglings cease. There's no longer any attempt to accomplish this or avoid that. Now, a caveat. You can be a knower of Brahman and in your mind still have some bad habits. I can remember when we were studying I Am That. There was a disciple in the Sargadatta Maharaj who was all concerned because Maharaj smoked cigarettes. Well, how come you smoke? Isn't that an attachment? And his response was, it's not problematic. Why do I need to give it up? Another one says, well, you're supposed to practice ahimsa, non-injury, and there you are sitting on a tiger skin. And he says, I didn't kill the tiger. Someone gave it to me. What's the problem? Now, if you have a habit and you find that it is hurtful to others or gets in the way of your interactions with the world, you may choose to not do it anymore. And if you're a yogi, you know, I know how to do that, tapas. But it will not give you any more knowledge of the soul. Likewise, you may see a man or woman of knowledge going on a retreat, meditating, spending time in deep meditation. It does not add to their knowledge of the self. For them, it's a worldly pleasure, a quieter mind, happier mind. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Ahameva cha bhuteshu sarvashveko namo yatha Mayi sarvani bhutani pashyannevam na jayate. A man is never born again who knows that he is one only in all beings, like the ether, and that all beings are in him.
So again, the word here, ether, a better word I think of is sky or space. So when I wake up from the long dream of thinking I'm a person, it's not that I, a being, once had to reincarnate and now I don't have to come back again. No. Just as when you wake up in the morning from the nighttime dream, your knowledge is, oh, God, that was so vivid. Thank God it was just a dream. Meaning, it was just something my mind projected. I have always been just lying here in my bed, sleeping. So the woman or man of wisdom, at the moment of realization, understands I was never born in the first place. I have always been birthless, changeless, and deathless. I just didn't know it. I had this weird dream that seem to go on for apparent lifetimes, that I was a person. All that happened. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Na bahyam madhyato vantir vidyatenya svata kachit abhahyanta shrute kinchit tasmat shuddha swayam prabha. The self is pure and self-effulgent, having by nature no interior, exterior, middle, or anything else anywhere, according to the Shruti, devoid of the interior and exterior.
So the self is self-effulgent. So I need a flashlight at night to shine on the table or the couch or the chair. But if I turn the lamp on, I don't need the flashlight to illumine the light bulb. The light bulb is self-effulgent. Its very nature is light. So also, consciousness is that by which knowledge of everything gross and subtle is known. Who sees the table? I do. Who knows the sofa? I do. Who knows my feelings? I do. Who knows my thoughts? I do. Who is it who knows me? I do. I don't know it in the same way. And is not known through the triple factor knower, knowing, and known. It is self-effulgent, self-evident. Now, the second part of this verse reminds us that the self is outside of time and space, meaning time and space occur in it. And again, as I like to say, you are the God of your dream. I go to sleep at night and I have a dream. When I'm dreaming, my mind is the context for the dream. The content of the dream is I have a dream body, which is a locus of perception, and an ego identified with it. And then I perceive the dream world outside as other, and thoughts and feelings inside as mind. But is there really an inside and an outside of the dream? Well, it seems that way to the dreamer. The cars, the streets, the houses are outside in the dream. But when I wake up in the morning, I realize the outside, the dream body, the thoughts and feelings inside, all of it, content, was in my mind, context. So also, the entire phenomenal universe, content. What is the context? Consciousness, Brahman. What is Brahman? Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. What is this world? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all Brahman. Just like all the elements of my dream are me. So all the universe is in you, not in you, the individual, but the real you. I am Atma Brahma, the self is Brahman. All of it is in consciousness. Just as all the elements of the dream never touch, threaten, alter, or change me the wafer. None of this really touches the self. And that means also the self that you are. It's all safe. Any thoughts? Next verse.
नेति नेत्यादिशास्त्रेभ्यः प्रपञ्चोपशमोऽद्वयः अविज्ञातादिशास्त्राच्च नैव ज्ञेयो ह्यतोऽन्यथा. The self is non-dual and left over by the negation of the universe according to the Shruti. Not this, not this. It should be known as described in the Shruti. Unknown knower, and never otherwise.
The unknown knower. Wonderful phrase. Meaning it cannot be known through the instruments of perception. The five senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, the mind, feeling, the intellect, thoughting. Yet it is the knower. And here, how is it known? And Shankara here has made a reference to the practice that the Upanishads give us. Neti, 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 which means na iti, not this, not this. Whenever we refer to this, we don't just say neti, and we don't go neti, neti, neti. Three. It's always neti, neti. Why? Because what we need to negate is the personal conditionings, what we call the upadis, and the macrocosmic conditionings. So, how do we reconcile this idea that you are that? Doesn't seem like it. I have a hard time balancing my checkbook. I'm not infinite. I can't even get someplace on time if there's traffic. You know, I'm certainly not God. I can't even make the stoplights change green. How can I be God? So we have to use this neti process at the level of the individuality, subject-object discrimination. I am not the body, I am the knower of the body. I am not the prana, I'm the knower of the prana. I am not the mind, I am the knower of the feelings and reactions. I am not the intellect, I'm the knower of the thoughts. And I'm even the knower of the karta, the ego sense. And I'm even the knower of ignorance itself. What am I? Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. Sakshi, the witness of the body. Macrocosm. God has a physical body, as it were. It is the Jagat, the creation. God has a subtle body, the total mind. God has a causal body, the total vasana. But if we negate all that, what is the ground of being? Prajnanam Brahman, which is consciousness. That witnessing consciousness that I am, that Brahman, which is the ground of being for the whole creation, they are the same thing. That's the thunderous declaration of the scripture. Now, our job is to directly experience that, not just see it as a philosophical truth. Any questions, any thoughts? Next verse.
Sarvasyatmahameveti brahma chedviditam param sa atma sarvabhutanam atma hyeshamiti shruteha. If one knows that one is the Supreme Brahman, the self of all, one should be regarded as the self of all beings according to the Shruti, their self.
So, you see the world from your viewpoint. I see the world from my viewpoint. You are aware of your body. I'm aware of my body. You are aware of your thoughts and feelings. I am aware of my thoughts and feelings. But if you quieten the mind and introvert the attentive faculty and notice the knower, all that's there is the space of pure awareness. And when I look behind my eyes, all that's there is the space of pure awareness. The self in me is not like the self in you. The self in me is the self in me. Oh, Lord Krishna, he's an avatar, divine incarnation of God. Shirdi Sai Baba, people say he's an avatar, divine incarnation of God. I have news for you. You are an avatar, a divine incarnation of God. Krishna and Shirdi Sai Baba did not have a different self. What's different? Upadis, equipment. The equipment simply had a different function in this world. Everyone is a divine incarnation of God. Now, marvelous things happen when we see the world that way. I was looking at this YouTube about Ramana Maharshi, and he was so full of love that even the wild animals loved him. They would come to be in his presence. You and I were fearful. We see lions and tigers and snakes and bears and cows and stuff like that as other. But he did not. He saw the truth. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all God. And the more deeply we abide in this reality, at the level of what we call vyavahara, our transactions, the world starts to treat us differently. It's a marvelous thing. Next verse.
Jivaschet paramatmanam satmanam devayam jasaha devopasya sadevanam pashutvacha nivartate. An individual becomes adorable by gods and free from being under their control, unlike beasts under men, if he clearly knows the Supreme Self, the Shining One, to be himself.
Yes. So here Shankara goes on to talk about the same thing I was mentioning. When we lose our fear and aggression, we become adorable. That's not the goal of the practice. That's a side effect. But one of the things that happens. Now, that doesn't mean that there are people out there who may not have weird ideas about a man or woman of knowledge. I can remember being at one of the camps with Swamiji, and there was this one woman, God bless her. She was freaked out, and she said, Swamiji's the devil. I was looking at him, and all of a sudden, I could see he's really the devil. Now, what was she seeing? Some projection of her own mind. She superimposed on the emptiness of Swamiji. All I can share with you is that we adored him. And it wasn't because he was sweet and nice. He wasn't that all the time. He was so empty. And as a result, this God power would come through him like a waterfall. We could feel it. And we responded. Next verse.
Ahameva sadatmagyah Shunyasthavanye yartathambaram ityevam sandhatvat sadhatana padhyate. The truthful man who has renounced everything unreal does not get bound again when he knows that he is always consciousness, the eternally existing self, devoid of everything like the ether.
So the sadak, the seeker, the mumukshu, must practice discrimination. But once sthita prajna, steady wisdom, dawns on the mind, the fact that the person knows they are Brahman is the most obvious thing in the world. Were you ever not you? So Ramana Maharshi says, just like for the ordinary person, they do not doubt that they have a human body. They don't think they're a goat or a cow or a horse or a pig. And there's no effort in this. You can see, no, I have a human body. So also for the person of wisdom. They don't get deluded again. They know I am brother. There's no person there. Aditi, will you stop the recording for just a moment? Next verse.
Kriparnaste nyarthevato diva brahma param hiye swaranyo nanyadrik swastha tasya deva asan pashe. Those are to be pitied who know the Supreme Brahman to be otherwise. Those, on the other hand, who know it to be not different from themselves are established in the self and are their own masters. They have all the gods under their control.
Yes. So what do we do? What's our attitude towards those in ignorance? He uses the word pity here. You have to understand that pity now has an incorrect contemporary interpretation. It has a quality of condescension nowadays. But the actual definition of pity is genuine sorrow at the misfortune of others. It does not have an element of condescension in it. So here, those in ignorance, we should have real compassion for them. How do we treat the people in ignorance? Gita has a very interesting verse. It says, we should not unsettle the minds of the ignorant with the truth. Let me give you an example. Someone who is not a yogi, has no interest in it, maybe someone you know from work or a family member, has a tragedy. They have a child who dies, or they lose their job, or they have a bad illness. We should meet them with compassion. Do what we can, if asked, to help them go from where they are to perhaps the next step. What you don't do is say, well, the second chapter of Gita says, you grieve for whom you should not grieve, though you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. Get over it. That's cruel. It's true, but it's cruel. So we don't do that. Be helpful, be useful. Now, read the verse again one more time in English. I'm having a senior moment on the second part.
Those are to be pitied who know the Supreme Brahman to be otherwise. Those, on the other hand, who know it to be not different from themselves, are established in the self and are their own masters. They have all the gods under their control.
So the person who's a knower of Brahman, they have knowledge of this world and the beyond. And they do not grieve. They do not get upset. It was marvelous to watch Swamiji. He thought we were all very funny. He thought humanity, the world itself, was very funny. Didn't make fun of us. Frequently show us, though, he was a great mimic, how funny we were. And here, when he says the devas are under control, Shankara does not mean that you have occult powers to command the gods. The devas here mean the sense organs themselves. The woman or man of wisdom is no longer tyrannized by sensory data coming in. It's all just the play of mind. It's all just Prakriti, nature itself. Next verse.
With two verses together.
Please.
Hitva jatyadi sambandhan vachonya sa karmabhi omityevam sadatmanam sarvam shuddham prapadyatha setum sarvya vasthana me horatradi varjitam tiryagurdhva madha sarvam sakrijyotiranamayam. Give up all connection with caste, etc., all actions, and all talk regarding the non-self. Always meditate on the pure self, the all-comprehensive principle as Om. The self which, like a causeway, protects everything established, such as castes, orders of life, etc., and which, untouched by day and night, is in all directions, horizontal, upward, and downward, and free from unhappiness, is of the nature of eternal consciousness.
So, for the person in the world, as we look at Veda, Veda means knowledge. And the Veda has two sections. It has a Karma Kanda and it has a Jnana Kanda. Action portion, right living, Dharma, and a Jnana Kanda, the Upanishads. Both are part of the tradition. So for the ordinary people, we have right action, things to do. Now, Shankara was speaking in his historical perspective, where there were rules of caste. We've talked a lot about that in Gita class, that it's guna and karma that make up caste, meaning qualities of mind and one's actions. It is not janma, birth. Although even by the time of Shankara, it had come to mean that. So family, job, today we could think of more of, don't be concerned about your station in life, your social standing, your income, your title, where you live, what you wear. Those are our modern version of those sorts of things. Now, it doesn't mean that we need to become a renunciate and run around, in the robes of a sannyasi. We have to understand that the rishis, the authors of the Vedas, were all householders. So they had, in essence, jobs to do. For them, husbandry, animal husbandry. Your job, perhaps, as the village scholar. And today, we do our duty. We do our duty. And if we're still seekers or in ignorance, there are suggestions for ways of behaving in the world that not only will make us happier overall, but improve the quality of society. I've become very fond of the yamas and niyamas that we find in the Raja Yoga tradition. Ways of interacting with the world and ideas of how to control, discipline our inner world. Qualities like, I think there was one author I was looking at which reduced everything to ahimsa. If you can just thoroughly practice non-injury, all of the yamas and the niyamas reduced to that. So I like to say, try not to be a jerk. It goes a long way. Satyam. Be straightforward. Tell the truth. Oh, I'm always honest. I never steal. I always say what's on my mind. Well, actually, the place where we need to be honest the most is in our own minds. Are we really honest? Telling the truth of when I've got hurt feelings? Am I being vengeful by not being communicative? Am I really frightened when I pretend I'm not? So satyam, important. Saucham, cleanliness. Here, much more importantly, live an ordered life. Frequently, I'll find people in recovery. They live like a slob. Then they get sober. They get clean. All of a sudden, now they're starting to clean up their apartment. They're perhaps getting new clothes, clean clothes. They're bathing more regularly, getting their teeth fixed. A sattvic environment helps to contribute to a sattvic mind. All of these yamas and niyamas are very helpful, but they of themselves are preparatory for the woman or man of wisdom. First of all, by that point, these should be habits. But they are outside of various disciplines. Does the woman of realization have to do puja? Just finished Navaratri. Oh, I didn't do any rituals. No, there are no rules for the person of steady wisdom. You may or may not participate in religious practices. Shouldn't you worship God? Yes. But how? Parama prema, supreme worship, is reveling in the self. That's something that's done anywhere at any time. Next verse.
Dharma dharma vinirmuktam bhuta bhavyat kritat swamatmanam param vidyat vamuktam sarva bandhane. One should know oneself to be the supreme Brahman, free from all bondage, merit and demerit, past and future, and also from cause and effect.
Yes. Dharma, adharma. So, what are the dharmas for the woman or man of realization? There is no set life. Those of us on Monday who are studying Panchadashi, the author of that text, Vidyaranya, was a counselor, was a chief court minister to the Raja, to the king. He was involved in state politics, advising the king on matters of state. Later, he ends up as the Shankaracharya of the Sringeri Math, the great monastery in South India that Shankara had founded. Known as a great sage, but his Swadharma called him to worldly duties. Swami Tapovan wandered in the Himalayas. A Tyagi, a great renunciate. Chinmaya was a Jagat Guru, world teacher, flew all around the world. His Swadharma, his dhoti and kurta were beautiful silk. Always had people who were more than willing to wash and iron all that stuff. People would give him a Rolex watch. He flew first class on the airlines. He lived like a king. Proud of it. Of course, it was past. He didn't really care. Did he enjoy it? I don't know, probably. No set way of life. Now, this again is not an excuse for bad behavior. If you come across someone who claims to be a teacher and you find them excessively extroverted into the world and they've got cravings, I always say, watch out for three things. If they want all your money, if they want to have sex with you, if they want to control your life. I would go the other way. There's probably someone who's got simply the veneer or charisma of spirituality, not a real person. That's a general thing. Next verse.
Akriv akurvanas vansarva krichuddha sthitashthanate didhavataha mayaya sarvashaktitvad. Sorry. Mayaya sarvashaktidvajaha sanbahutha mataha. The self is regarded as the doer of everything, though it is a non-doer. It is pure. It runs ahead of those that run, though it does not move at all. It appears to be many, though unborn, for it possesses all powers by Maya.
So here's a paraphrase of some of the hidden allegorical statements that we get in the Upanishads. So let's peel this one apart phrase by phrase. So the first idea, please.
The self is regarded as the doer of everything, though it is a non-doer.
Yes. So we have this very famous Zen koan. From where you are sitting, move the distant boat across the water. This is not about developing occult powers to make things happen. The woman or man of realization understands that the karta, the doer, you can look at it from two ways. Gita will say guna and karma, it's the qualities of mind and the force of the past. There's no person there really doing the doing. Or you can say Ishvara does everything. The same intelligence that's got you looking at the Zoom thing to this morning is spinning galaxies, supernovas, etc. So what is this ego sense? I had a wonderful insight. It was last Friday. So I had my session with my student Ron at 3, and we were going to go to dinner at 4:30. So we got in the car, and we were heading up Harrison, and there was a stoplight right by Whole Foods. And I was just being funny. So I'm going, change, didn't change. Change, didn't change. Change, it didn't change. So Ron looks at the light on the side, and he sees it turn yellow, and he goes, change, and it changed. So my insight was the stoplight is controlled by Ishvara. Ego is me going, change, change, change. Trying to make things happen as if I had personal power. Now, Ron That's like the man of wisdom with deep intuition. If my mind is quiet and I'm not afflicted by raga and dvesha, if I'm not tyrannized by ego, it's like when you can look and see, okay, it looks like it's going to change. Meaning, God's will speaks through my intuition. And I will have the intuitive sense to do this, to go there. This is what Jesus meant when he said, I of myself do no thing. It is the Father within that doeth the work. But you and I, with the vanity of ego, I do this and I don't do that. Change, 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 like, you're all upset. Thinking stupidly, I've got the power. It's just a wonderful little funny moment of insight last Friday. Next idea.
It is pure.
Yes. The self has no qualities, no characteristics, no action, no taint, no dirt, no form. The empty sky of consciousness. Next idea.
It runs ahead of those that run, though it does not move at all.
Yes. Okay. So I don't have self here. I've got to go there to get self. I'm going to run down the street. And when I run down the street, who's aware of what's down the street? I am. So it goes nowhere. No matter where I'm going, what I'm doing. Oh, I want to go to the Himalayas where there's more gold. It might be a more conducive environment, but right where you are, you are. You are there. You are kutastha. Still, immovable, like the mountain. Next idea.
It appears to be many, though unborn.
So just like in the dream, there's people, places, things, and conditions, many, but it's my one mind refracting into that. So also consciousness, which is one without a second everywhere, seems to be manifesting as this world of name and form. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahma. It's the last piece of this verse.
There's one more.
Okay.
For it possesses all powers by Maya.
Yes. So how does this world come about? How do all the various things happen? Something that seems so commonplace and little, like watching a seed sprout. And huge, massive things, like galaxies colliding, massive black holes merging. It has all powers. by means of Maya, the illusory power of the infinite, which is co-eternal. All of this appears, and yet the ground of being is never touched, never really. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop. What verse are we on for next week?
We're on verse 80.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.